Imagine this. You bought a pre-construction condo in 2020 thinking that you absolutely couldn't miss on this investment. And for a couple of years, you were right about that. And then all of a sudden, late 2022 hits, interest rates go up sharply, and your carrying costs have almost doubled. And suddenly you're paying $700 or $800 a month just to keep the lights on in this place. This is the story for a lot of people in places like Vancouver and Toronto. The headlines everywhere are saying condo crash. And the question for us in the nation's capital becomes, is Ottawa next? The answer to that question is a qualified yes, but not to the same extent as these other places are seeing. Most long-term investors and condo owners are gonna be okay, but there are some people who do have a legitimate reason to be really concerned. For some quick context, in Vancouver and Toronto, people bought these really small floor plan condos, often called dog crate condos, at peak prices in Toronto and Vancouver. The plan was simple. It was buy the condo, flip it to somebody else on assignment before closing, and then pocket the profit. It was going to be easy money. And then, in the middle of this cycle, the Bank of Canada jacked up the interest rates, your mortgage payments doubled, your condo fees went up, and prices dropped by 15 or 20% on some of these places. And now a lot of these investors are stuck in these assignment deals that are just never going to close. The rental rates aren't high enough to cover their mortgage. The prices aren't high enough for them to sell and recoup their losses, and they don't want to take possession because they have no intention of living in these places. And as a result of this, many of these investors are just walking away from their deposits and leaving these deals on the table. This is the condo crisis that you're hearing about in the news. In Ottawa, though, we're playing a bit of a different game in a different market. Let's look at the actual numbers here. The benchmark condo prices in Ottawa right now are around the low 400s. We're down about 9% from the peak in 2022. It's definitely not great, but it's nowhere near the carnage in Toronto. Year over year for prices, we're basically flat. Some months we're down a percentage point or two, and some months we actually went up a little bit. The real shift and reason for concern that has been happening in Ottawa, though, is not the prices, it's the amount of inventory that's been building up in the condo market that could lead to price decreases down the road. We are seeing a lot more units hit the market and stay there. We are seeing the days on market climbing steadily, as well as the months of inventory. And this is putting buyers in a position where they have a lot more leverage than they have in quite a while. And because of that, they're able to take their time and negotiate in a way that they haven't been able to over the last few years. This isn't because demand for condos have disappeared. In Ottawa, we are still in what I would consider a housing shortage. Rental demand is super high, but we do have a few things that are contributing to this buildup of inventory. The first is that there are new condo buildings that are reaching completion, and all of those units are hitting the market around the same time. I've actually heard from somebody I know at one of the big builders in Ottawa that they've converted a lot of their buildings that were gonna be for condos to rental buildings because the demand for condos is just not there. The second is that while we're not in the same bad position as markets like Toronto and Vancouver with those tiny condos, there are still a lot of investors who bought pre-construction and are looking to sell those places before the building's even complete. So that's contributing to the increase in inventory as well. And the third and one of the most significant reasons is that a lot of sellers still remember 2021 and 2022. It was just a couple of years ago when maybe their next door neighbor with a really similar floor plan got $100,000 more than their agent is telling them they should list for now. Expectations of sellers are gradually realigning with the market, especially if they're being shown the right data. But there are still some people who are really attached to that price from a few years ago, and it's going to take the time for those expectations to realign. So what we're seeing isn't actually a crash, it's more of a rebalancing, and it's the market shifting away from that mentality of I'll just buy whatever I can and it's guaranteed to go up to, okay, like this unit has to make sense. Is this something I can actually sell? And as a buyer, is it something that I'm actually going to want to live in? So who should be worried about this? While this definitely doesn't spell doom for every condo owner in Ottawa, there are some people who are going to be in a tight spot, no question, because of this. And we've talked about a couple of them already. The first is over-leveraged investors who borrowed the money or put every scrap of their savings into a down payment for a new property that they would be able to rent out or flip, and then got caught when the interest rates went up and the prices went down. The math just is not going to work out for those people anymore, and they've made a big financial mistake. Like, they are in trouble now. The second is pre-construction buyers who maxed out at the peak of 2022. for the same reason. Like, if they were planning to stay there for just a little while and were expecting the price to go up and that they'd have the chance to flip it and move up the property ladder, they're in a situation now where things are not working out the way that they had hoped. A lot of these people, if they're going to be end users, will be able to close, but they're going to take a big financial hit on their valuation. Now, for these two groups, it is really a legitimate crisis. Like, these people's lives are messed up as a result of this, and that really is too bad. With that being said, this actually could spell good news for the condo market and the Ottawa real estate market in general. And the biggest reason for that is the market is finally getting out of that headspace where speculation is just the name of the game. Everybody is treating real estate like an investment that can go nowhere but up. And that actually led to a lot of instability, especially once prices started to come down sharply. Now that interest rates seem to be in a spot where they're going to stay for a little while, it's going to hopefully create some more stability in the market and make people feel safe enough and hopefully make the properties affordable enough that people can get in and start to build equity the way you're kind of supposed to when you buy your first place. Slowly, over time, not doubling your value in 3 years. The second is that more inventory means more negotiating powers for buyers. They're going to be able to do all of the inspections. They're going to be able to have their lawyer look at the status certificate for the condo. All stuff that wasn't really able to happen over the period where things were selling super fast. These basic things that protect buyers are things that I think should be mandatory. And it's something that we're seeing on almost every condo transaction now, which is a good thing. And on kind of the other side of the same coin, sellers have to be more realistic about their pricing. More and more sellers are coming around to the idea that there's a lot of condo inventory in Ottawa, and the prices that they expected to get a few years ago are just no longer going to be realistic. And we're seeing this a little bit in the freehold market as well. But this shift out of the headspace of I deserve exactly what my neighbor got for a similar place 2 years ago, that's finally starting to hit home with sellers that that's not going to be the case. The market has shifted. The final reason I think this could be a really good thing is that even though we didn't have as many tiny condos built in Ottawa as we had in those other markets we've talked about, there were still some, and this is going to make developers reconsider building units like that. They're going to have to look at what kind of unit is actually going to be attractive for a buyer and what's going to make sense for a lot of lifestyles. And they're going to have to build those things. Otherwise, they're learning that they're not going to be able to sell the units. No more 500 square foot floor plans with a window facing out onto a brick wall. No one's going to buy that anymore. The investors are gone, and that's a good thing overall. This is starting to look like a more mature real estate market that is in line with what people are actually able to pay. I don't think we're all the way there yet, but we're heading in that direction. If you want to buy a condo right now, I would say you're in an unusually good position. Now, I don't know exactly if prices are going to go down further. There's a lot of inventory, so there's a real possibility that they could. What I've been telling people that I work with is it feels like there's a window of opportunity right now in Ottawa to buy a condo. I don't know if that window is going to open any wider and you're going to get a better deal in a few months. It's possible, but I do know that window of opportunity is open. I can't remember a time in my career where it's been easier to negotiate a good deal on a condominium. Just make sure you do your due diligence, look at the status certificate, make sure the building is well managed, and choose a place that's actually going to make sense for a lot of lifestyles with a good view, a good location, all that sort of thing. Those sorts of things hold their value. And lastly, if you're in the market for buying a condo right now, don't let anybody push you into rushing. This is not the market where you're going to get blown out by offers that come out of nowhere. I've had it happen once or twice this year where multiple offers did happen on condominiums, but it's definitely a rarity, and these were places that showed really well and were priced competitively. If the place has been sitting for more than a couple of weeks, it's very likely that you're going to be the only one offering on it, so you can go back and forth and negotiate yourself a good deal as far as price and terms that make sense for you. So big picture, where is the condo market in Ottawa heading? I would say we're finally exiting that casino phase of just put as much money in as you can and hope that it's going to go up into more boring long-term investing. Look at the fundamentals of the property, see if it makes sense for your lifestyle if you're going to be living in it, and buy it if it makes sense for you. The condos that work long-term, good floor plans, good locations, good management, you're going to be okay if you own one of those or you buy one. Ottawa tends to stay relatively stable as well compared to the markets like Toronto and Vancouver because we're so anchored in government. Unless there's a bunch of cuts to the federal service, the market usually does stay fairly resilient. So that's a factor as well in the condo market and every section of the market in Ottawa, frankly. If you want help with this is what I do, so feel free to reach out anytime. But just make sure you're working with somebody who has a good understanding of what's going on in the market and isn't just going to sell you on hype. We saw way too much of that in the early 2020s. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. If so, please feel free to like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you very much. Take care.